So Dragon Ball Super happened. Now I'm not saying it's bad, it's just very, very different. Yet also not. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Dragon Ball Super has been one of those things that has been a bit of a mixed bag. And granted, it wasn't the most stellar outing in the franchise's history, but at the same time, it was a very necessary thing to have happened. And now, had it not occurred, we would have seen Dragon Ball become stale and formulaic, which is exactly what we saw in the early days of the series before it actually kicked up a gear. It needed to evolve and reaffirm what it wanted to be in the modern age of anime and popular culture. Now sure, it had a very major legacy that was very well respected, but it needed to build upon its legacy, and in the end, I think that it did with a pretty solid ending that, although it was rushed in some ways, made up in terms of visual iconography and of course presence. I mean, come on! Those live Mexican screenings to tens of thousands of people seeing Frieza and Goku finish off Jiren? I mean, come on, that's just iconic in of itself, it's just giving me the chills thinking about it. I wish I could have been in that crowd when that happened. So what now? Well, regarding Super, we're not sure whether Toei still remembers that it's a thing. It's like they've forgotten about it whilst counting the box office takings from the Broly movie. For some unknown reasons, they are being very, very secretive about their plans with the franchise. In fact, you could possibly say that if they don't get a move on with their plans for Super, or whatever it's going to be called, or at least just announce their intentions for this new series, or whatever they were going to be doing, people just won't care anymore. Come on, Toei, don't toy with us. Okay, griping over. Anyway, we think that we have gained enough time and distance from when the series ended back in March last year to talk about what we should fix, or what we would have done differently if we had run the show. We will limit ourselves to just talking about the pacing or story, as points about better animation have already been improved and greatly discussed on other channels as well as videos that we've made. So wait, Masako, might you call this a what if of sorts? Well, you could say that. It's certainly a combination of both some little bits of what-if-ery in the narrative department, as well as a discussion. I remember doing a discussion about this ages ago concerning how you would solve a problem like Dragon Ball GT. It was one of my earliest videos. You could keep a lot of the visual notes of GT and maintain its personality and identity, but at the same time, you could refine the story beats and basically make it a better product with the same look and feel, because the music and animation, they were pretty good for the most part. You didn't really need to change much in that regard. So with that in mind, we want to propose several fixes to the storyline and characters of Dragon Ball Super. Starting with number 1, the pacing of the movie sagas. Now if it was solely up to me, I would have gotten rid of those arcs entirely. It's what I tell people when they want to start watching Super. Start at episode 27 or 28, so long as you've seen both Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, that is. Now while they may add some adorable little glimpses of filler, note episode 15 of course, and stuff that gets a payoff later on, Ultra Instinct, they aren't usually mentioned as the most favourable elements of Dragon Ball Super. In fact, it's where most of the problems that Super had in terms of production came from, and that didn't help. Had we removed them and instead brought more time into development for a winter 2016 start for Super, where it should have been episode 28 being episode 1, things may have turned out differently, but we can't do that. These episodes exist, so we have to work with them. Now while they only last for about 14 and 12 episodes respectively, they really seem to be dragging along, and certain elements to the plot are inferior to the movie versions. And it doesn't help because we've seen them in the movies already, and there's barely any added content to provide extra little tidbits of info to us, things that were removed from the screenplay for time reasons we could have just put into this arc. These arcs should be even shorter, with a proper slice of life arc in the middle. Say for example, we cut Beerus's arc to 8 episodes, and Frieza's arc also to 8, a 16 episode arc which acts like a recap, but yet feels less loose like the series proper was. We can see clearly today that Super was struggling in getting a proper tempo when it started, a problem which was seen again later on during the Tournament of Power arc, which is a separate topic in of itself. Now, if they have to retell these stories, maybe different perspectives of things would be better, from a different point of view. Sure, from Beerus's angle, and Frieza's angle from the very start. Now technically we did get a bit of that, but you can argue that you could still do something unique about this. And if not, at least get it over with quicker. Number 2. introducing Zamasu sooner. I don't know whether it's purely down to age, or maybe his inclusion in the Super Dragon Ball Heroes anime as a one-eyed pirate or something, but the character is no longer seen as super grating like he was when the Goku Black arc was fresh in our minds. Yeah, I can attest to that. He has aged like a fine rosé. And while his saga was at times supremely overcomplicated, we are now able to find something to like about the Green Kai in training. The thing that is still a problem though, is that his fall to the dark side didn't really resonate with us all that well. It was quite basic and it just suddenly happened. Since he was already a bit of a pillock in the first place, we knew he would end up being a baddie. There was no real sense of surprise. Had Super introduced him earlier, maybe as Shin's oldest friend, just hanging out with him in the Elder Kai one day, we might have been affected more by a sudden change. We'd be probably thinking like, what? No way! That guy turned evil? What? Why was Shin hanging out with him? I think in the eyes of Toyotaro and Toriyama, Zamasu was supposed to be a sympathetic villain, but his rhetoric was so out of place for Dragon Ball that we didn't really have a chance to feel for him. It just felt odd and we were just thinking, yeah, he's gonna turn out bad, isn't he? Zamasu was an answer to the modern age of villains putting them in Dragon Ball, one with a more analytical and provoking motivation. Granted, that's pretty brave of them to try and admirable to do so and experiment with the formula a little bit, but it didn't really work. You can only go so deep with a Sunday morning cartoon show, and it being Dragon Ball. It's kind of funny after seeing Thanos actually, whose goals in Infinity War are pretty similar, and yet we're able to empathize with him more. Yeah, for some brief moments we all thought, you know what, he's not wrong. Now remember, sympathetic doesn't mean redeemable, but we still think that Zamasu as a fallen hero didn't work the way he was meant to work due to the very short time that we knew him before his transformation into merged Zamasu. Still, you can't say that he hasn't made an impact. Number 3, not ignoring character growth of Goku and Vegeta. Goku and Vegeta have to learn to work together. Seems to be a very big part of the relationship arc in Dragon Ball Super. The issue is that, at the end of the Buu saga, they'd already shown that they are capable of putting their differences aside and working together, that they become much more friendly rivals. They did work together all along as both Gogeta in Fusion Reborn, as well as the fight with Gohan as Vegito. That was the culmination of their arc, and it was pretty glorious. And instead of continuing this and refining this development just more and more so, we have Whis trying to convince us that, oh no, that doesn't work, they're incapable of doing this, no. But the Buu saga in that regard never happened, so back to square one we go. We now have an ultra-competitive Vegeta again, and a Goku who suddenly went backwards in terms of his personality, all the way back to the days of the original Dragon Ball. I mean, yeah, that personality was kind of endearing and cute as a child, but it's much less cute when a 40-plus-year-old man does that. And the characterization of Goku and Vegeta is pretty off at times in Super, and it often feels that them headbutting against each other all the time is just an artificial bubble simply made to raise the stakes, which already are pretty low if you don't retcon the end of Z. There is some good stuff though, like Vegeta growing up to be the responsible one, but still, it could have been done differently. Instead of trying to get them to work together for a second time, a more interesting plotline would be that Goku and Vegeta would have actually started to learn from each other. So instead of just literally fusing together again, just take heed from their skills. It's similar, but it feels more like a step forward instead of the backtrack we had just copying stuff from Z. Number 4, properly decide what to do with Gohan. Okay, fine Triple T, Toriyama, Toyotaro, and Toei, so you know. You guys want to show that Gohan can't be both a scholar and a warrior. Fine. If you're going to go that way, at least allow him to be good in one of those things, not just have him struggling at both. It's very unlike his base persona. He's become as much of a joke as Krillin has. Honestly, if you really don't want him to fight anymore at the front line of the Dragon team, allow it so that that big head of his could be made to be useful. It's not like it hasn't been done or anything, or is unlike the style or ethos of Dragon Ball. Bulma has been helpful in almost every story arc in the original Dragon Ball, as the brains of the group. So why not give Gohan his own niche, as someone who could add his scientific flair and his past experience as a warrior to the training of other characters. He can help them out, because he does write the book on ki energy in the online timeline after all. He does provide a great service to the world and has great knowledge. He technically became the captain of the Universe 7 team as well, as appointed by his own father, only to then be abandoned by the strongest warriors in said team at the very start, including said father. Shouldn't the androids have a little bit more respect towards him as well? I mean, he had beaten Cell when he was a kid, and sadly, the only people who actually stick by him are people who are noticeably weaker. You know, the Earthlings. They're like, I got your back, buddy! Well, the only stronger warrior that has shown any kind of respect towards him is Frieza. Yeah, Frieza. Granted, it's in his own slippery and somewhat sarcastic way, but it's still more than Goku and Vegeta have shown whilst those two were busy feeding their own egos at the beginning of the tournament. Of all people, Frieza is the only one who plays fair with Gohan, and the plan that they hatch regarding Dispo allows them to KO the third most powerful member of the Pride Troopers. That's a pretty big deal. Now, if you want us to take Gohan seriously going forward, give the boy the respect he deserves. Number 5, not hyping characters that accomplish nothing. Whilst Subversion was and has always been a Toriyama way of writing certain situations so as to provide unpredictability, and Z is equally guilty of this, hello Mystic Gohan and Kamikolo, it's still kind of baffling that after the whole build-up with Krillin, Tenshinhan and Majin Buu during the preparations and the build-up to the Tournament of Power, they ultimately have accomplished very little in Super. Krillin has been made a butt of a joke yet again. Granted that his fight with Majora was actually kind of entertaining, and in keeping with his younger days in fact. But instead of him going down like a warrior, he was ousted with a single hit by Sneaky Frost. And if you read the manga... Actually, in fact, don't read that part. It disgusts me. Same with Tenshinhan, whose performance was pretty forgettable actually. And, well, of course there's Majin Buu, but less said about that the better. The thing is, if you want us all to get fired up for the return of certain characters, at least let them go down as warriors, valiantly. Make them do something notable. Or if you can't bring yourself to do that, don't include them at all, so as to preserve what achievements they have made in the past. Keep their integrity together. There were so many warriors with interesting gimmicks that Tenshinhan could have outsmarted very well. It just feels like a waste that he was outed so early without a second thought. Number 6, the pacing of the Tournament of Power. The Universe Survival Arc is a weird case, to put it lightly. Not only does it take almost half of the entire run of the current iteration of Dragon Ball Super, and can be really inconsistent from writer to writer, there are a lot of them, it also has a very weird tempo. When this saga reached its peak around episodes 109 and 110, a lot of us were worried. Worried that it will be hard for Super to keep up this pace after having something that appeared to be the saga's most important battle. You know, Jiren and Ultra Instinct the first time around. In a way, you could have just ended the saga right there and then, with the sudden and brief arrival of Ultra Instinct. What a way to go! Little did we know, we weren't even halfway into the arc's overall narrative. After episode 110, however, everything was all over the place. Of course, we had stuff like Hit vs Jiren and Goku vs Kefla. Those were pretty cool. But the longer it lasted, writers then had to realize that now they were getting to the point where they had to start kicking out Universe 7 characters in a compelling way, so as to ensure that the stakes were kept away from being dangerously low. Sure enough they did, but in pretty silly ways, as proven by Piccolo and Vegeta. It did sort of improve upon the pacing before the end, around 123-124, and yet the ending itself, albeit flashy and effective, felt super rushed. Like the staff had been told to suddenly wrap things up, around about January when it was announced that Super was going to stop. Not that many characters from Universe 7 got their time to shine fully, and a lot of us agree that it was mostly, apart from Goku and Vegeta, the 17 and Frieza show. While those moments were enjoyable, we still could have gotten a better build-up towards the ending. The tournament itself could have been shorter, with certain major players being properly introduced earlier, like Paparoni from Universe 3, and allowed to be able to do more. This isn't just the anime's problem, of course. The manga is thought by many to be even worse. So I guess this proves that the tournament really should have simply been planned better from the very start. Maybe if we kept the Ultra Instinct transformation for later on in the arc, it might have been less jarring? Or if the arc ended not long after episodes 109 and 110, instead of 21 episodes later, it's hard to tell, but the best course of action would be rewriting most of this saga and leaving only the good parts in. So what do you guys think? Would these ideas have improved Super in any way? Or is this something that just doesn't work as well? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!